Hi, my name is Pat, and this is my channel, Book Chat with Pat, and I'm glad that you're here. Today I'm going to be doing my top 10 favorite reads for 2024. These may not necessarily be the best works of literature. Some of them might not be, but they are definitely works that I found the most enjoyable to read. These are my favorite books for the year. I did not include any rereads in this list because that would be a different list altogether. I reread a lot of books this year, and they're not included in any way in this list. Many of the books that I'm going to be talking about in this list are books that I have reviewed or talked about in other places on the channel during the last 10 months, but a few are books that I never talked about on the channel because I read them before I actually started this channel. Before I do the top 10, I'm going to just mention a couple of honorable mentions because, of course, I could not possibly just pick 10 books. So I have three honorable mentions that I'm going to talk about that on another day they might be in my top 10. And some of the top 10 could move around from place to place, but this is how I'm viewing it today. But I couldn't keep it to just 10. So I have three honorable mentions who almost made it to the top 10. One is William Kent Kruger's The River We Remember, which I have talked about on the channel. This was a book that I read with my in-person book group, and I just really adored this. I have recently discovered William Kent Kruger, though he's written many, many novels. And I've read three of his novels kind of in close succession. This was one that I just really, really loved, and that it could easily be on this list. Another honorable mention is George R. Stewart's Earth Abides. This is a novel that was originally published in 1949. This is, and it won all kinds of awards at that time. This is a post-apocalyptic novel after there has been, a terrible, virulent plague moving through the globe that has wiped out a lot of the human race. I believe I first encountered this novel in July when I was honored to be asked to be a co-host of Rocket Summer. And I can't even remember who recommended this, but I'm thinking it was probably Michael K. Vaughan, and I read this for the first time in July, and it just blew me away. And my last honorable mention is Ray Bradbury's Something Wicked This Way Comes. I have read Ray Bradbury before. Before I read this, we used to teach Fahrenheit 451, and I certainly had read many of his short stories. But this was just a really powerful novel for me. I guess I read this summer also, and then read all of the other novels that are related to the Greentown series. But I just fell in love with this book and with Ray Bradbury. He's a writer I certainly liked and respected, but this book made me fall in love with him, and it got me to read a whole bunch of other things that he has written. Okay, so those are my honorable mentions, and now we're going to talk about my top 10 favorite reads. Coming in at number 10 is Daniel Mason's North Woods. This is a book that I read early in 2024, before I had started my channel. I read this with my in-person book group also, and just fell in love with this novel. I then reread it in the second or third round of the BookTube Prize awards judging. This was one of the novels that I was assigned. This is the novel. Many people have talked about this on BookTube this year. This is the novel that really follows a house through several centuries, and we come to know all of the different inhabitants of the house throughout time, throughout several hundred years. And while it seems like all of the different characters are unrelated, they actually are very related, and they all ultimately interconnect as you get further along into the novel. And it's also a novel that's written in many different voices and many different styles. There's journalism in here, there's crime reporting, there's medical reports, there's poetry, songs. I mean, different eras. The story of the house is told in different forms during different eras. Coming in at number 9 is Nuala O'Foylan's Are You Somebody? The Accidental Memoir of a Dublin Woman. I had heard of Nuala O'Foylan, but I had never read her until I read this. I think this spring I read this for the Irish Readathon, and it was part of my reading all things Irish in preparation for my trip, and I just adored this memoir. I loved this character, this person, this journalist, Nuala O'Foylan, and that set me off reading everything I could find by her. That's number 9, most enjoyable. Number 8, T. Kingfisher's A House with Good Bones. This is a novel that was recommended to me by MJ when I said I wanted to participate in horror mayhem, but I was scared and I didn't want to read anything gory or too scary. I wanted something so that I could just kind of get my feet wet in the genre, and MJ described this as sort of cozy horror, and so I read it. I fell in love with it, and it set me off on a T. Kingfisher tear as well. And I think I read 5 or 6 novels of hers after I read this. So very, very enjoyable read, and introduced me to a new author that I absolutely love. So that's number 8. Number 7, Claudia Pinheiro, Time of the Flies. Now, I've just talked about this book recently. This was the work that we most recently completed in the Pinheiro project. I am discovering Claudia Pinheiro, with this project, and this one, which is a sequel to the earlier one, All Yours, which we read first. This one blew me away. It takes a look at a couple of the main characters from All Yours, about 15 years later, and we see what has happened to Inez after she served 15 years in prison. We learn all about her life, her relationship with her daughter, her relationship with a new dear friend, Lamanca, someone she met in prison, and of course there's another crime in this story, or more a potential crime, and we just get to see how how this character Inez has changed over time, and how she is dealing with her past, and what her plans are for her future. This was also the novel that had echoes of Medea, the Greek from the Greek play Medea by Euripides. Medea is running all through this novel, as well as we look at what happens to a woman who is seeking revenge. Number 6 for me would be Victor Hugo's Les Misérables, a novel that I've spoken about many times on the channel since last April, when I read it for the first time with Classics and Company. And I said at that time that I thought I might have been the last person on earth to have read this book. And then I just couldn't believe what I had been missing all of these years. It was such an immersive experience to read this gigantic novel. And I hadn't had an experience like that in a really long time, of just being totally immersed in a novel, in the world of a novel, and I was really bereft when we finished, when it was over. I was participating in a delightful Voxer group where we were discussing this novel, and it just had such a powerful impact on me, and I was really sad when we were finished. Okay, my top 5. I have just recently completed Ronan Hession's Leonard and Hungry Paul. This is a buddy read that I've been doing with my friend Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics. This is a novel that became it was selected as the book for One Dublin, One Book for 2021. It was a finalist in all kinds of Irish and English awards. It's just a beautiful story about two really nice guys, two decent guys who have a friendship, who lead very quiet, ordinary lives. It's just a novel that makes you just want to celebrate everyday life. It's a book that made me laugh. It's just written with a really wry sense of humor, and it's also a book that brought me to tears on more than one occasion. So that's number 5. Number 4 is a work of nonfiction that I read in the first round of the BookTube Prize judging. And this is Tracy Kidder's Rough Sleepers. And I've talked about this book in many videos. It was, I think, my top book for that round of judging, and it did go on to the next round. This is the story of Dr. Jim O'Connell, who is a doctor who devoted his entire life, his entire medical career, to taking care of the homeless in Boston. And he did so by bringing medical care to the people, the rough sleepers living on the streets. Just an incredible work of nonfiction. A story of a truly inspiring figure in the medical profession. Number 3, Susie Boyt's Loved and Missed. This is a novel that I read in the second round of judging. This was a fiction for the BookTube Prize in 2024. Susie Boyd is the great-granddaughter of Sigmund Freud. She is the daughter of the great artist Lucian Freud. She has written many novels, but this was, I think, the first that has become available in the U.S. I think, and this was published by the New York Review, the New York Review of Books, and I believe this is the first of her books to be available in this country. I might be wrong about that, but I think that's correct. This is the story of Ruth, who is a single mother of a daughter, Eleanor, who is hopelessly addicted to drugs. Eleanor has a child, Lily, whom she cannot take care of. And so grandmother Ruth ends up taking care of this child. And it's really a story about, they are a family already, but they kind of become a found family, with some of Ruth's friends also becoming a part of the family as well. This is a beautifully written novel, and as I've said in many videos, it is also a novel that just spoke to me on the deepest of levels, and it also is a novel that broke my heart. Number 2, James by Percival Everett. Many people are talking about this novel on BookTube, and have been since it was first published. This is just such an important novel, and it is now starting to get the recognition that it well deserves. This is the story of Jim, who becomes James, from Twain's Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. But this is the story told through the point of view of James, a slave, and then a runaway enslaved person. And as Everett has said in many interviews, he's writing here the work that Mark Twain never could have written, given his time and place in history. I think this might be the most important book that has been written, published this year. And my number one favorite read was Donald Ryan's The Queen of Dirt Island. And I've also talked about this in many videos. This is the story of 4 generations of Irish women in a family, and it's just about the everyday trials and some really very serious trials that they encounter, and just everyday life. And I fell in love with the characters. I fell in love with the voice or voices in this novel, and it was a part of my my reading all things Irish again in preparation for my trip. And I think that I was especially in love with the grandmother character in this novel. I'm sure, because on some level she reminded me of my own Irish grandmother, whose homeland I went to visit, and whose house, her house, the house where she was born, the house that I also was able to rediscover. And so I'm sure that that's part of why this was such a powerful reading experience for me, but it's also just simply a truly beautiful novel. So these are my favorite reads of 2024. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these, if you have, what you thought of them. If you'd like to let me know about your favorite reads, I would love to hear that in the comments as well. So, thanks as always. I thank you for watching. I hope that you're doing well. I'll speak with you again soon. Take care.